One day I was at Santa Monica Pier. I had known that wasn't the original end of Route 66 or really ever the end of Route 66. When I saw all the Route 66 stuff, and we actually had to park a little bit of ways. And while I was walking to our car, I came across the other sign saying that was the end of Route 66. And I was like, well, I don't think this was the end of Route 66 either. And so that kind of just spawned the idea of showing the different in the Route 66.
Welcome to Route 66 Travels. Today I have Steve. He has a YouTube channel called Sidetrack Adventures. And guys, I can't stop watching it. And I know you're going to feel the same way. Steve, thank you so much for being here. I have 1,000 questions.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
My first question, I saw that you have a playlist that's specific to Route 66, and it is very extensive. I can't wait to talk about it. One of my favorites, and I'm actually doing a video on that myself because I actually used to work at the Penguin restaurant.
Mm,
In your video, I knew that that was the original ending of Route 66. And I love your video. You did the 4 different locations that all claim to be the end of Route 66. And the Penguin, which is
right.
now Mel's Diner, is there. Can you tell me what brought that to your head to do that one?
Yeah. One day I was at Santa Monica Pier, and I had known that wasn't the original end of Route 66 or really ever the end of Route 66. When I was there and saw all the Route 66 stuff, and we actually had to park a little bit of ways. And while I was walking to our car, I came across the other sign saying that was the end of Route 66. And I was like, well, I don't think this was the end of Route 66 either. And so that kind of just spawned the idea of showing the different in the Route 66. I think that was one of the first videos that I actually did for the YouTube channel as well. So I had been thinking about that even before we started doing this YouTube channel. I thought, oh, maybe I'll do like a blog article or something about this.
I think it's great. And that's what I want to do is Santa Monica Pier really the end of Route 66? Because it's not. And I loved Santa Monica Pier. I lived in Santa Monica and I managed the Penguin restaurant. Think it's about 18 years old. So I don't want to give away. That's like 37 years ago. It was a very good time of my life. I loved the area. I had no idea at the time that it was Route 66. I also, oddly enough, lived in Rancho Cucamonga, which was on Route 66. It's just been amazing that Route 66 has been a part of my life, and I didn't even know it for until my latter years. And now I'm so passionate about researching it. Have you been to the Cucamonga station?
Yeah. I actually did a video on the Cucamonga station as well. That may be the only video that I don't actually hear in at all. We had filmed another video right before we filmed that. And as we were walking through the brush or whatever, I got smacked right in the face by a branch, busted my lip open. You can actually see my lip is actively bleeding in the video that we filmed right before that. And it had gotten like black and blue by the time we got over to the Cucamonga station. So I actually walked around filming the station, but I never actually show up in the video at all just because I had like half a lip or something at the time. So,
Oh my God.
but yeah, I did do a video on the Rancho Cucamonga station.
I absolutely love the format that you do. You do the research, then you go visit the place. Everything is on video. You give great information. You don't give fluff. You talk a lot about the history of it, and you talk about some of the wives' tales or the his story. I love history is his story. So you listen to all the stories, but you say, I don't know that I believe that, or I don't really think that's what happened. So I love that you do all of that for your viewers. Is there anything that you haven't done yet in, let's say, California that you'd like to go do along Route 66?
Yes, Cadiz Summit. I would love to go out there. That part of Route 66 has been closed for years, and I know people say that you could just go around the signs that say that it's closed, but I've often heard of highway patrol catching people out there, so I haven't been out there since it's been closed off. There's a couple things in the Los Angeles area that I would like to visit as well, but I haven't been able to. Just the traffic usually going to Los Angeles kind of prevents me from wanting to go up there too much. It's crazy that Los Angeles is 100 miles from me, but it takes me twice as long to get there as it does to get to the Arizona border. There's also Route 66 goes through the Marine base, and that part of Route 66 completely closed off to anyone who's not in the Marines. I would love to see what, I don't think there's anything on that part of Route 66 to see, but I've never been on that part of Route 66. I would love to see that as well, but I don't think that one's possible.
Is that one outside of like Barstow area?
Yeah, yeah. I know they built like some Route 66 statue on it, but off limits, unfortunately. So I guess we need a Marine Route 66 enthusiast to do a video on it for us.
All right, guys, if you're a Marine Route 66 enthusiast, reach out. Let us know in the comments so that we can reach out to you and get permission to go and experience that, because that would be so good. I think I've seen two on Newberry Springs. One is Mrs. Orcott. Did I say that right?
Right.
Okay, tell us that story real brief, and then I want to link the video in the comments so that people can see it.
Yeah, I think that's one of my actually favorite Route 66 stories, just because such a wild, story when everything adds together in it. But there was a lady who she lived off Route 66. She had a business, or she had several businesses. And when they were building Interstate 40, it was going to cut right through the road that linked her house to Route 66. She was going to be completely cut off. But she threw a big fit about it. She even wrote to President Johnson, and they had to decide how they wanted to link her back to the road. Did they want to give her her own interstate exit, build a bridge, how they wanted to do this? So what they decided to do was they built a 4-mile long road that's basically her driveway that linked back to the nearest exit, which was 4 miles away. This road was completely flat, well paved, and straight. And so Car and Driver magazine found that road and decided they were going to speed test vehicles on it. She didn't like this. She would occasionally show up and chase Car and Driver magazine off with a shotgun, but they went out there and they were testing vehicles. They even hit 200 miles per hour on that road. A lot of articles in Car and Driver magazine were written about it. A lot of tests were done. So the road kind of became a little bit famous in the early 80s, but then Mrs. Orcutt passed away. Everything went into ruins, and it was kind of forgotten for a while. But just that she got the government, costed millions of dollars to build her own road, and then a magazine found this road and turned it into a test track, basically an illegal test track at that. Pretty wild story.
That is such a good story. I love it so much. Do you think that the government ended up buying her property, or do you think she just didn't have any heirs? It's just in disarray, as you said.
So I saw just notices in the newspaper asking for any heirs to come forward after she passed away. And I don't think anyone ever came forward. I don't know if the government currently owns the properties. The rest area on Interstate 40 looks like that might be part of her property. I'm not sure. I don't know if the government took it. I know they have not paved the road recently. There's nothing out there. And I don't think they're going to be doing any repairs.
You mentioned that there were these little holes all around the place that you saw. And what was that for?
Oh, yeah. Those were for her to put guns through, basically, to protect her house. She was out there by herself, a little old lady, and she had gun ports all over her house.
It's funny because I just recently learned that the reason a lot of older buildings along Route 66, and I'm sure in every town, but they have the windows that are up so high is so that the cowboys wouldn't shoot them out having their gunfight. I thought that's pretty interesting. Mrs. Orcott was the one that got the Newberry to add the springs to the end.
Yeah, it was just Newberry. And then she got the post office to change Newberry Springs without letting anyone else know about it. So overnight, their town changed, and nobody was aware until it happened, except for her.
Of course, she was already ready. She already had her little pre-made return address all made up on there with the new name. What would you say is your favorite visit that you've been to on Route 66 so far?
I would have to say, I really like Oatman, Arizona. I love the drive of Route 66 from Kingman to there, but I would have to say the part of Route 66 that goes from Kingman to Seligman, that kind of bypasses the 40, kind of cuts up and goes up through Peach Springs. That has to be my favorite part of Route 66. It's such a beautiful drive. There's hardly any cars on it. I mean, you get everything. You have the newer Route 66 attractions like Volcanic Pedicus. You have abandoned towns along the way. You got the Hackberry General Store, the Grand Canyon Cavern, and they even have the Burma Shave sign up along the road. And then you end in Seligman, which is one of the really great Route 66 towns. I don't really want to narrow down to one particular place, but that portion of Route 66 was definitely my favorite portion of Route 66.
I love that. That's a really good one. Last summer, I recorded the Burma Shave signs and went to
Mhm.
Hackberry. That was my first time actually going to Hackberry. I found out you could go underneath that tunnel or go around and see that little school. I was sad that I didn't go downtown there. Have you been down that area?
Yes, yeah, I have gone down in the area.
I wish I had, but I was in a little Prius at the time and a little car, and I didn't trust the road was really bumpy. The cavern, you stayed there.
Yes.
How exciting was that?
Oh, that was pretty cool. I'm really glad that we did it. But kind of an interesting story on that. While we were down there, there's no internet, there's no TV, there's basically nothing. You're cut off from the world. So while we were down there, we kind of heard of the coronavirus was kind of in the news at the time. And we went down there, and while we were down there, everything shut down. We came out, and the first thing the guide tells us as they come to get us the next morning is, yeah, the NBA just canceled its season and everything's shutting down. And going home, there was gas stations that were closed. It was kind of like a weird experience leaving there because the world like kind of changed while we were down there. And just that one night when we were there, we had no idea. It was like a one of those zombie movies or something, the night of the comet.
Wow. That happened while you were down there. That's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah, I think the NBA were the first major thing to shut down, and that kind of got everybody else going with it too, because I guess while we were down there, a whole bunch of places now they were closing up.
Wow. That's a very interesting sign. So is that the only time that you've ever stayed there?
Yeah, that's the only time. I don't even think you can right now. Yeah, I think it was maybe a year ago or so that people got trapped down there. But I took my email. I had a whole bunch of emails from different news companies asking if they can use our footage of the Grand Canyon Caverns because of the story of people getting trapped down there. So I got to see the little Sidetrack adventures, Sidetrack adventures like on the Day Show or something where I allowed them to use the footage that we had.
That's so cool.
I guess I wish it was under better circumstances, but yeah, there was definitely a lot of people searching for the Grand Canyon Caverns around that.
That's a crazy thing. But the hotel's still open, right? The motel?
I think the motel on the top is still open. I'm not 100% sure. I think people camp out there too. I can't imagine the campground being closed. I'm sure they had to take a huge hit financially not being able to do tours of the cavern. And it's kind of a sad thing that how close we are to losing all of these Route 66 attractions just because the margins they operate on are usually so tight. Something like the Grand Canyon Cavern, if they go out of business, then that's it. Is anyone else going to take that risk of reopening it and putting the money into it to fix the elevator that would be needed? And that's the kind of the sad thing about Route 66 is just kind of everything's like kind of teetering on the edge at all times. You never know when stuff will be gone. Even something that, like the Grand Canyon Cavern, has been there for millions of years, being able to access it might be taken away.
That is part of the problem that we deal with along Route 66. I just went to a council meeting in Miami. I got to say that right because they get mad here if you say Miami for the Ribbon Road. They call it the sidewalk road or the Ribbon Road. It's only 9 foot wide. That goes from Miami to Afton, Oklahoma. They've been talking about tearing up and just leaving a remnant or a little thing for it. The mayor actually said that negotiations have been pretty good and that there's good news ahead. So hopefully that'll be preserved. But it is part of the motivation behind my channel is just to raise awareness that it's there and bring people to these little businesses that are struggling. I've just really just become very passionate about trying to help these businesses. Most of the local businesses, they get very little local business. They get mostly tourists and tourism. And that is the lifeblood of these little towns along Route 66. So when you go in there, buy a souvenir, tell them that, you love them and you appreciate that they're still there, putting a little money back into these guys that are trying to preserve this history because once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you been to Two Guns? Arizona.
Yeah, I did a video on two guns. Actually went into the Apache Death Cave. Well, a lot of people in the comments on that video were like, "Well, I can't believe you went, went in there." But yeah, I crawled around in the cave and checked that place out. And then we went across the freeway to Canyon Diablo on the other side as well. Most of the stuff about both of those places are just completely made up. Same guy wrote a book, The History of Canyon Diablo, and he just seemed to know every detail, knew the names of every business, stuff that there's no way that he possibly could have known. There was no newspaper in the town, so it's not like he went back and found old newspapers, and he basically just made up the story. Invented the Apache Death Cave story as well, and for Two Gun. It's interesting because in Canyon Diablo, there was a real gunfight there, and that story is in itself interesting, but it kind of gets overshadowed by this fake version of being the most dangerous town of the Old West, where it never was that. I think the story that came up was they ordered a bridge across Canton and Diablo, and the bridge was the wrong size, so they had to wait for a new one. But if you check the actual record, the bridge was built on time. There was no delay. They didn't have this wild town set up where they were killing the sheriff every day. And the railroad went through, and 6 months later they were gone, and basically all that was left was a little station and a store. None of the wild tales. There's one person in the graveyard there. But I think a lot of times the legends, even if they're not true, definitely make the town more interesting, and it gives you a reason to go out there. Even if it's not a true story, you could talk about, hey, this isn't a true story. If anyone's been in the Apache Death Cave, you could see that there's no way a bunch of horses were in there, getting burned alive. You can't fit one horse in there, let alone, a whole bunch of horses.
Thanks for bursting all my bubbles there. I appreciate that.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, I fell in love with Two Guns way before I had heard any of the stories about it. I remember when I was a kid, we're talking 40 plus years ago, 45. I remember walking around and seeing they didn't have obviously the animals in the cages, but the cages were way better condition. And I remember walking around and the signs were still there and it was embedded in my brain. And so every time, we're talking close over 50 times probably, I stop. I always get off and at least drive over the cattle guard and go
Mhm.
circle around a little bit and see what is there. And one time, actually, a few summers ago, I met a guy that said that the property, and I don't know if you've heard this, but I've heard it was owned by Russell Crowe or somebody, that there's investors that are going to turn it into what do they call it? A glampers park for RVers. And he showed me the blueprint. He showed me how they were going to have two separate sections. They were going to fill in the cave and bury it so that nobody could go into it. So get out there and go see the cave if you want to before it gets buried. And that they were going to put in an amphitheater. They were going to have a little water slide. I mean, it was about 200 acres. And he had it all planned out. And I saw the blueprint on the ground. He unrolled it and showed it to me. I have his business card somewhere. I'd love to interview him and find out what happened.
Yeah, it sounds like, see, something like you hear about something like that, and so far away from anything else that the first thing in my mind when I hear of somebody wanting to build something in the middle of nowhere now is, well, I guess in a few years we'll have another abandoned place to explore in a video, because I just can't imagine the kind of infrastructure that they would be talking about building out there, being able to get your money back on that, just because there's such a small number of people that are going to want to stop at Two Guns. Especially when you can't really stay there during the summertime. It's a 3-season type of thing where you're going to have to be shut down part of the year. Nobody wants to be out there in 100-degree weather camping. But I think of all the broken dreams along Route 66, and people keep trying. So
They do have a little casino not far up the road, and that seems to be still there, even though it closed down for COVID. And it seems to do well, but people like to throw their money in those machines.
we always stop at the gas station at the casino. They have a pretty nice little convenience store place to get drinks. They have a Native American soda company, and they actually do the bottling right there. And when you go in there, you can see the machine for it and stuff. Pretty cool. I haven't tried the soda actually, but definitely a good spot to stop and fill up on snacks and stuff before you continue on.
So I have to ask you a question. And I can't remember when I saw this, or I can't remember when this video was done, but you were doing a haunted highway and
Oh
you had
yeah.
got a haunting device.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Like around here somewhere. I still have it. Yeah, with Amazon Ghost Detector.
and so have you found any ghosts with your ghost detector?
Not yet. I mean, it seems to go off when I bring it next to my phone, so maybe focus on it. I have no idea if we're using it correctly or not.
That makes me laugh so hard. So you have a ghost that lives in your phone.
Yeah, like that's all I could think. I mean, it definitely needs. It's around here somewhere. There's a big map on our table right now. I think it's here, but yeah, it's some people in the comments on that video were like, "Well, you need to buy a more expensive ghost detector if you really want to fucking ghost." I'm like, "Well, I didn't know ghosts needed, more expensive detector."
That's so funny. So are you gonna take it do you take it with you more than just that trip, or have you used it since then? I guess I wanna know.
I have not used it since then. I haven't been to any place that's considered haunted since then, though. It seems like anywhere I go, like somebody will say that there's some sort of ghost story associated with it. But I do plan on bringing it back to New Mexico next time I go. There's a town called Clayton. We could pass through there when we were trying to get to the corner where New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma met. I wish we had more time in Clayton, but Clayton is considered the most haunted town in New Mexico. When I head back there, I'm going to bring the ghost detector with us there. I think maybe I'll get a $20 ghost detector.
Have you been to Cuervo, New Mexico, or is that Arizona? No, it's New Mexico.
I've been through there. Is that where? See, there's story, and I didn't want to do this as a YouTube video. I considered it, but I was thinking that it might be too adult a subject. But is that the town? There's like a FERC there.
Yes, I know what subject you're talking about. I've been to Cuervo quite a few times, and I'm a little nervous because when I went in there, the not that church, just to be
Mhm.
clear, but I wanna say it was a Catholic church. I went in and just videotaped it, and there was a newspaper article, like a newspaper folded up on the table in front of the pulpit, and it said I think it said 1985 or 1984, and it was in perfect condition. The church was in perfect condition, but I'm very familiar with that story that you're talking about, and it was I mean, it was a true story. It was in a different church that was in town, but I don't think I went anywhere near that one. So
Yeah, I'd seen pictures of of it, but yeah, we drove through there last year, or actually, I think it was earlier this year, but we drove through there, and I had considered doing a video on it, but I just decided that that wasn't really a subject that I wanted to have on our channel. It's just I've done like stuff on murder. The video posted today was like a massacre that took place back in the 1850s, but the other one, it's such a creepy story. Now, of course, people are gonna be wanting to look here and talk about it.
it's definitely rated R, and I'll go ahead and post the one video that I saw in there so people can see it if they want to look it up. But it was just a perversion of sort, and I don't feel like it's something I really want to promote on my channel either. It was on the news, so it was true. I did do quite a bit of videos, and I have one in the works right now for Cuervo, but I think you should go with your ghost detector because I feel like it definitely has some creepy stuff happening there.
Yeah, I do plan on heading back to New Mexico, hopefully in a few months. I don't have anything planned yet, but I would like to go September, October before it starts getting too cold. I just don't know. Aside from heading back to Clayton, I haven't really decided what I want to check out while we're there, but I do plan on getting back to that area.
It's a lot of fun. I never thought I would be somebody that just loves to travel and explore, but the older I get, the more I like it. I guess that's why when retired people buy RVs and go about their business. And that would be probably, I like having a stationary home, but it's fun to just go out and explore. I'm a big fan
Mhm.
of metal detecting. Have you done any metal detecting on any of your videos?
I have not, but my dad is actually big into metal detecting. I mean, he's been on like the cover of like one of the metal detecting magazines, and so he's really big into metal detecting. But and sometimes, he'll see one of the videos and he'll ask, I think anyone's metal detected out there, but I haven't done any metal detecting myself, except for when I was a kid with my dad.
I think it's a lot of fun. So, have you been to Kansas?
I have been to Kansas. I've actually been to all 50 states, but I would say Kansas is probably the state that I have spent the least amount of time in out of all states. And I definitely need to fix that. I watch probably the wise guy, and it's just amazing when I see his videos on the Route 66 in Kansas, just how much stuff is packed into the 13 mile. I definitely have to go there. But there's a lot of other stuff and all over Kansas that I'd like to check out that I've never been to, like Dodge City and in that area. It's just so many places to go and so little time to do it. Unfortunately, it's so hard to get. The farther away from home, the longer of a commitment it is to get out there.
I love that you mentioned Travel with the Wise Guy. He's great. He did an interview with me. I love that he will just drive down the road and find all these little desolate places. It's changed the way that I drive. I mean, I know this is not Route 66 related, but I went down to Louisiana to visit a friend of mine. And now everywhere I go, I just want to get off the road and start between your show and his. I just everything I do, I want to stop and explore every single place.
I love that his there's so much in like Oklahoma. My grandfather was from Oklahoma, and I'm sure a lot of what seen is the same things that my grandfather would have seen. I would love to be able to explore that area, but thankfully he's out there going through everything, and I get to see these things through at least through his camera. He does definitely does some great videos.
Isn't that the beauty of YouTube, though? I mean, that we can show everybody what we get a chance to experience, and then we can see what other people get to.
Yeah, places that I never knew that I wanted to go. I've seen people do YouTube videos on them. Like, I gotta go there. I gotta go check this out.
Same here. Thank you again, Steve, so much. If you want to check out any of Steve's Sidetrack adventures, please check the links below so that you can experience all the fun stuff that I've been talking about and he's been talking about.
Thank you. Thank you for